Have you ever wondered what it truly means to unearth a musical treasure? I'm not talking about those gems that critics have rediscovered and elevated to the pantheon of progressive rock, but rather those that lie forgotten, buried under the dust of time, waiting for the adventurous listener who dares to venture beyond the established canon. In 1972, a pivotal year for prog rock, while giants like Yes, Genesis, and Jethro Tull were cementing their legacies with masterpieces that defined the genre, a myriad of lesser-known but equally talented bands released albums that, for a variety of reasons, poor distribution, lack of promotion, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, never achieved the recognition they deserved. Today we're diving into these albums, these whispers of genius lost in the clamor of history. Get ready for a journey that will challenge your notions of classic and invite you to redefine what it means to be a true prog rock enthusiast. The year 1972 was a bubbling cauldron of creativity in the music world. Progressive rock, in its most exuberant phase, pushed the boundaries of instrumentation, composition, and lyrical ambition. It was an era of fearless experimentation, where bands weren't afraid to blend jazz, classical music, folk, and even avant-garde elements into their soundscapes. The global context fueled this. The late 1960s still echoed with the countercultural ideals of the flower power movement, but the early 1970s brought tensions like the Vietnam War, economic crises, and social shifts that inspired artists to create more introspective and complex works. Albums like Close to the Edge by Yes or Foxtrot by Genesis captured this spirit. But for every such success, there were dozens of others that carried the same innovative drive and musical quality, yet faded into obscurity. It's a shame, a true tragedy for music history, that these masterpieces remain unknown to most. But as a historian and critic who has spent decades sifting through the rubble of musical history, I can assure you, obscurity does not equal inferiority. On the contrary, it's often in the shadows that we find the brightest pearls, those that defy conventions and offer a unique perspective on what progressive rock could have been. During this period, prog rock wasn't just a musical genre. It was a movement reflecting a quest for expanded consciousness. Influenced by philosophical literature, mythology, and technological advances in studio recording, bands embraced emerging synthesizers like the Moog to craft unprecedented soundscapes, and concept albums became vehicles for profound narratives. However, the music market of the time was ruthless. Independent labels struggled against giants like EMI or Atlantic, and many European albums didn't easily cross the Atlantic. Factors like the oversaturation of the British market and regional fragmentation in continental Europe left talents from countries like Italy, Germany, France, and the Netherlands on the sidelines. Today, with the rise of streaming and vinyl reissues, these albums are finding new life, but their essence remains unchanged. A rebellion against the commercial, a celebration of art for art's sake. Let's begin our excavation with an album that, for many enthusiasts, represents the pinnacle of obscure Italian prog rock, Filona e Sorona by La Orme. Released in 1972 by the #1 label, this album is a true conceptual epic, exploring an imaginary dystopian world where two twin islands, Filona and Sorona, symbolize good and evil in an allegorical tale about the human condition. Formed in Venice by virtuosic musicians, vocalist and keyboardist Aldo Tagliapietra, bassist and keyboardist Michi De Rossi, and guitarist and keyboardist Tony Pagluca, the band crafted a work that delves into philosophical and spiritual themes, inspired by poetic and existential visions. This isn't just a story, it's a profound meditation on duality, redemption, and the cycle of life, translated into a symphonic and melancholic musical language. Tagliapietra, with his ethereal and emotive voice, narrates the journey between the islands with an intensity that evokes Italian opera, shifting between gentle passages and dramatic climaxes. The instrumentation is rich and orchestral. Keyboards like the Mellotron and Hammond create layers of synthesized strings and flutes, while acoustic and electric guitars add folk and progressive textures. The rhythm section, with De Rossi's pulsing bass and precise drumming, maintains a hypnotic flow, with time changes that mirror the narrative's twists. The album is divided into extended suites like Felona and Sirona, which occupied entire sides of the original vinyl, filled with instrumental interludes and vocal harmonies reminiscent of Genesis and King Crimson, but infused with a distinct Mediterranean flavor, marked by operatic melodies and rhythms echoing Italian folklore. Recorded at Philips Milanese Studios, the production captures the band's dreamy atmosphere, with echo and reverb effects enhancing the sense of cosmic vastness. Why does Felona e Sirona remain so impactful despite its relative obscurity outside Italy? Its originality lies in its seamless fusion of British symphonic prog with elements of Italian classical music, creating a sound that is both grandiose and intimate. The execution is flawless, with all three members multi-instrumentalists, elevating virtuosity in service of emotion, never falling into empty showmanship. Moreover, the conceptual ambition demands focused listening, making it an immersive experience that rewards repeated spins. The album's cover, illustrated with surreal images of floating islands in blue and red hues, reflects the thematic dualism and has fascinated collectors, though limited distribution by Number One restricted initial sales to a few thousand copies in Europe. In an interview with Il Mucchio Selvaggio in the 2000s, Aldo Tagliapietra reflected on the creative process. "We wanted to create a world that was ours, a place where music could tell a story without unnecessary words." Felona e Sirona was born from sleepless nights and shared dreams. Even today, listening to it takes me back to that creative innocence. Today, reissues by Vinyl Magic and esoteric recordings have made it globally accessible, and it's revered in online communities like Prog Archives as a cornerstone of Italian progressive rock, influencing modern bands like Porcupine Tree in their conceptual narratives and symphonic textures. Now, let's cross the English Channel to France and uncover a true gem of symphonic prog, Pollen by Pulsar. Released in 1975 but with compositions and arrangements developed since 1972, when the band formed in Lyon, this debut album exemplifies how French prog carved out a distinct sound, blending classical elegance with psychedelia and experimentation. Pulsar, comprised of Gilbert Gandil on guitar and vocals, Victor Bosch on drums, Jacques Roman on keyboards, and Roland Richard on bass and flute, didn't prioritize gratuitous virtuosity. Instead, they focused on crafting atmospheres, building soundscapes that evoke vivid images and deep emotions. Pollen is largely instrumental, with extended passages that unfold slowly, revealing layers of textures and melodies. The title track, Pollen, opens the album with ethereal mellotron and flute sounds, creating a sense of cosmic drift, influenced by Pink Floyd and Camel. Pulsar follows with more driving rhythms, where Gandil's guitar weaves melodic lines over a backdrop of analog keyboards, evoking the vastness of space, a recurring theme for the band, inspired by astronomy. Appeasement offers a moment of tranquility, with flutes and acoustics reminiscent of progressive folk, while Puzzle Omen closes with gradually built tension, showcasing mastery of dynamics. Recorded at Ferber Studios in Paris, the production uses echo and reverb to heighten immersion. The grandeur of Pollen lies in its ability to transport listeners to imaginary realms. It's ideal for headphone listening in a quiet setting, absorbing nuances like ambient sounds, mimicking wind or stars. The compositions are complex yet accessible, balancing experimentation with catchy melodies. In a 2000 interview with Big Bang magazine, Gandil explained, "We didn't want to mimic the British. We wanted something uniquely ours, reflecting our culture and sensibility. Pollen was our attempt to create music that was both complex and approachable, speaking to both the soul and the mind." Despite initial obscurity due to limited distribution by Decca France, the album gained cult status through Musea Records reissues. It represents French prog at its purest, influencing acts like Air in their atmospheric explorations, and reminding us that beauty lies in emotional evocation, not technical complexity. Moving to Germany, a country less associated with traditional prog but a cradle of innovations like krautrock, we spotlight the self-titled debut by Grobschnitt, released in 1972 by Brain Records. formed in Hagen by Joachim Erock Ehrig on drums and multi-instruments, Lupo on guitar, Gerd Wildschwein, Otto on vocals and guitar, and others. The band defied categorization, blending prog, krautrock, psychedelia, and humor. Their debut is a burst of raw energy, with live shows famed for pyrotechnics, costumes, and theatricality. The album captures this chaotic essence, with long tracks like Symphony, nearly 14 minutes, alternating between ethereal beauty and sonic fury, and Traveling filled with improvisations. Psychedelic keyboards dominate, but guitars with heavy riffs and distorted solos shine, while Erock's drumming adds an experimental groove. Influences from Amon Düül, II, and Can are evident, but the humor, exaggerated vocals, and comical sound effects sets them apart. Recorded in makeshift studios, the production preserves its rawness. What makes Grobschnitt special? Its originality in breaking rules, infectious energy that grabs listeners, and irreverence in a serious genre. Erock, in a 2005 Eclipsed magazine interview, reflected, "We were young and wild. We wanted music that was different, ours." Grobschnitt reflects that energy, passion, madness. Obscure outside Germany due to lack of international promotion, it gained traction through SPV reissues, influencing bands like the Mars Volta in their eclecticism. Returning to Italy, a hotbed of 1970s prog, we explore Wise by Il Balletto di Bronzo, released in 1972 by Polydor, formed in Naples by Johnny Leone on keyboards and vocals, Antonio Spagnolo on bass, Gianci Stringa on drums, and Lino Agello on guitar. The band evolved from psychedelic pop to aggressive prog. Weiss is a concept album based on the Breton legend of the submerged city of Yis, divided into suites like Introduzione, 15 minutes, with heavy riffs and distorted keyboards bordering on proto-metal. Leone's histrionic vocals deliver dark themes, backed by dense instrumentation, crunchy guitars, aggressive Hammond, and relentless rhythms. Primo Incontro builds tension with virtuosic solos, while Epilogo closes with emotional catharsis. The production captures the fury, despite limitations. Its intensity, originality, blending hard rock with prog, and flawless execution stand out. Leone, in a 2010 Classic Rock Presents Prog interview, said, "We wanted something heavy, aggressive. Weiss was our complex, visceral vision." Obscure due to low sales, AMS reissues revived it, influencing prog metal acts like Dream Theater. From the Netherlands comes Pudding and Gisteren by Super Sister, released in 1972 by Polydor. Formed in The Hague by Robert Jan Stips on keyboards, Sascha van Geest on flute, Marco Vrolik on drums, and Ron van Eck on bass, the band blended prog, jazz fusion, psychedelia, and classical music, with hints of the Canterbury scene like Soft Machine. The album, a collaboration with choreographer Frans Verven of the Netherlands Dans Theater, was conceived as a ballet soundtrack with side A's Pudding and Gisteren Suite, 21 minutes, full of twists, ethereal flutes, and experimental keyboards. Tracks like Psycho Bird add humor with sound effects and improvisations. The production captures vitality. Its originality, energy, and irreverence make it unique. Stips, in a 2015 I.O. Pages interview, recalled, "We were wild. We wanted music that was ours. Pudding and Gisteren reflects that madness. Obscure outside the Netherlands, esoteric reissues popularized it, influencing bands like The Tangent." Let's delve into more 1972 treasures. First, Space Shanty by Khan, a British band with Steve Hillage, guitar, Dave Stewart, keyboards, Nick Greenwood, bass, and Eric Peachy, drums. Released by Deram, it blends space rock and prog with long tracks like the title song, 9 minutes, full of hypnotic guitar solos and cosmic keyboards. Influences from Gong and Egg are clear, with spacey themes and experimentation. Obscure due to the band's quick dissolution, it gained cult status through reissues, influencing Osric Tentacles. Next, Lady Lake by Gnidrolog, a British band with Colin Goldring, guitar, vocals, Stuart Goldring, guitar, Nigel Pegram, drums, and Peter Mars Cowling, bass. Released by RCA, it's folk prog with flutes and sax, tracks like I Could Never Be a Soldier, exploring anti-war themes. Complex and melodic, it's obscure due to lack of touring, reissued by Audio Archives. A Tab in the Ocean by Nectar, an Anglo-German band with Roy Albrighton, guitar, vocals, Alan Taff Freeman, keyboards, Derek Moe Moore, bass, and Ron Howden, drums. Released by Bacillus, it's space prog with the 16-minute title suite, known for live light shows. Influenced by Pink Floyd, it's obscure in the US, reissued by Dream Nebula. Lunch by Audience, a British band with Howard Worth, guitar, vocals, Keith Gemmell, sax, flute, Trevor Williams, bass, and Tony Connor, drums. Released by Charlie, it mixes jazz rock and prog, with tracks like Stand by the Door featuring virtuosic sax. Obscure due to stylistic shifts, it's reissued by Virgin. Framtiden ett svävande skepp, förankrat I forntiden by Elgarnas trädgård, a Swedish band with krautfolk experimentation. Released by Silence, it's psychedelic with exotic instruments like sitar and tabla, globally obscure but cult in Scandinavia. 666 by Aphrodite's Child, a Greek band with Vangelis, keyboards, and Demis Roussos, vocals, is a conceptual work about the apocalypse, released by Vertigo. Though semi-known, its experimental nature makes it underrated. Anomaly by McLuhan, an American jazz prog band, released by Brunswick, features complex, rare tracks. These albums are just the tip of the iceberg. A universe of obscure prog awaits discovery, challenging notions of classic. Obscurity reflects market quirks, not quality. Prog has always been for adventurers, enriching experiences by exploring the unknown. Unearthing these records revives history and connects us to artists' passion. Consider 1972's context, a world in flux, music reflecting that vibrancy. These albums were ahead of their time, not fitting commercial trends, yet their artistic value endures. John Peel said in 2004, "There's so much great music that never reaches people's ears. Music can change lives." That's my mission, sharing these gems. Their beauty lies in connecting us to different eras, time capsules of creativity. Step out of your musical comfort zone, explore. You'll enrich your life and keep the flame of innovation alive. What's a classic but something that stands the test of time? These albums are timeless, innovative. Talking about them keeps them alive. Dive into 1972's obscure prog. Skip algorithmic playlists. Find personal treasures. Music is about resonance, movement, life. Found in these uncharted depths. The passion for music lies in curiosity, exploration. Embark on this journey, open your mind and ears. Be surprised.